Chapter 101, Sword Master and Sword Princess. So, next up is the naming ceremony. As Loki's words fell, the atmosphere in the venue suddenly changed. The cheers of the gods became even more intense, but some of the gods' expressions suddenly changed. Tension gradually spread, confronting the malicious laughter from the other side. This situation brought nasty smiles to those who often attended Donatus. A farce was about to unfold. All the information has been distributed, right? Then let's get started. Let me see, the first one is the adventurer Tia-chan from Set Familia. Along with Loki's announcement, there was a pitiful cry from God Set. Please, I beg you, please go easy on my child. However, God Set's humble request only received ruthless replies from other gods. Absolutely not. This was the naming ceremony, where adventurers' aliases were determined. Aliases like Finn's, Braver and Riveria's 9 Hell, given to them after their upgrades, were all decided in Donatus's naming ceremony. This was the second name bestowed by the gods to celebrate the achievements of the children in the lower world. It was a symbol of power and fame only given to those who had transcended their limits and become high-class adventurers. It was evidence of the gods' recognition for their strength. The gods had given countless noble aliases to high-class adventurers unimaginable to ordinary people, and the residents of the mortal world greatly respected and envied these adventurers. Of course, the above is just a beautiful fantasy about the naming ceremony, held by mortals from the lower world who don't know the inside story. In reality, adventurer Erica Rosaria, alias Beautiful Tail but Bad Hand. No, WHYYYYY. Most of the aliases decided at the naming ceremony were just random names given by the board gods to have some fun. The names they came up with were arbitrary and did not take the adventurer's characteristics or preferences into consideration at all. For example, giving a blacksmith an alias like Holy Dragon Knight was not uncommon at all. The newly promoted adventurers are children painstakingly raised by their gods, and yet they are forcefully burdened with such shameful aliases that either make people laugh out loud or feel extremely awkward. For the victim gods, there is simply no torture more cruel than this. Some particularly ill-natured gods would burst into laughter at the irony of them being proud of having a talented child before, only to be heartbroken when that child acquires a bad alias. It is precisely because of this that they are happy to come up with such weird aliases. As the host, Loki also put forth some nonchalant suggestions and then conducted a voting process. Whenever the final alias of an adventurer is announced, the god of the corresponding familia will basically let out a miserable wail. The meeting was in full swing, with the gods joyfully tormenting the gods of weak and small familia and the rookies attending Donatus for the first time. As time goes on, the number of victims gradually increases. However, this phenomenon gradually began to decline afterwards. After thoroughly enjoying the spectacle of the gods of weak familias wailing in despair, adventurers affiliated with famous and high-ranking familias begin to appear on the list. Naturally, no sane god would dare to provoke these influential and powerful familia, so the phenomenon of bad aliases became fewer and fewer. Even for the second class, i.e., adventurers above level 3, they only need the alias reported by their god to be approved. The Hephaestus Familia, Ganesha Familia, and Ishtar Familia are all examples of this. After all, there aren't many adventurers above level 3 in the current Rio, and each one is a crucial force for the city. Basically, as long as a familia has a level 3 adventurer, the god in charge of that familia will gain a certain degree of influence in the Donatus. So let's continue. Let's see which adventurer is next. Finally, it's my turn. Loki waved the documents in her hand and excitedly announced to everyone. Next up is my child. They successfully upgraded in less than a year, Luke and Astan. Loki's words instantly drew the attention of all the gods present. The reason there are so many participants in this Donatus is that they heard that Loki Familia has recruited 2 little monsters with an unbelievably fast upgrade speed. Finally, it's here. Are you kidding? Is that news really true? Such upgrade speed, and it's 2 newcomers. Loki, did you really not use divine power to cheat? Once the gods use their divine power in violation of the rules, they will be discovered immediately, and there is no fun in using divine power to strengthen their familia members. Doing so is utterly meaningless and considered blasphemous in the divine game of the mortal world, an act that all the gods despise. If a god truly wishes to abandon the reality of living with their familia, they can easily return to heaven to continue enjoying the decadent life of indulgence. The gods looked at the accomplishments of Luke and Ace recorded in the documents in their hands. Each of them expressed amazement. And Loki, looking at their shocked expression, felt her vanity satisfied, with her nose almost pointing at the sky. As she had hoped, the appearance of Luke and Ace indeed brought Loki a lot of attention. Damn it, why does Loki Familia always recruit such good talents? Solo subjugation of Monster Rex Goliath at level 1, hey, is this a joke? Whether it's a braver or a 9 hell, Loki, how many outstanding children do you intend to snatch away? Right, alias, let's come up with their alias. In that case, let's unite and give these two super rookies an unforgettable alias for life. Agree. 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 Let Loki see how formidable we are. The gods, gradually enveloped in envy and jealousy, were preparing to create chaos amid cheers. However, Loki's icy gaze, sweeping over them, instantly sobered all the arrogant deities. Hey, if you want to die, just say so. Sorry, we're very sorry. Loki stared coldly at the gods who had just made a commotion. If they dared to give the lovely members of her familia such shameful aliases, Loki might really take Finn and the others to blast all the culprits into rubble. The gods, who had touched the sensitive nerves of one of the most influential goddesses in the city, were extremely fearful of being forcibly sent back to heaven and desperately pleaded with Loki. It's really unbearable. At least recognize your position before speaking. In the end, with the alias of the last adventurer decided, the naming ceremony has officially ended. The aliases for Luke and Ace were also determined, Sword Master and Sword Princess. The Donatus ended smoothly, and all the gods got up and left the venue. To announce the results of this naming ceremony, some gods who fought for an excellent alias for their children confidently headed to the guild headquarters. As for those oppressed gods who got shameful aliases for their children in this Donatus, they sighed and returned to their residences. Chapter 102, Evolus Attacks. Immediately after the Donatus concluded, the guild disclosed some information about the naming ceremony. General knowledge about high-class adventurers is publicly available in Rio. Details, such as the upgrade process of Luke and Ace, including their names, affiliated familia, races, levels, and the time taken to rank up, are disclosed by the guild. However, the so-called information disclosure only goes so far. Details like the weapons adventurers use, their preferred items, skills and magic, and their expertise in combat, are not disclosed to the public, and even the guild itself is not aware. The aliases of top adventurers in Rio, like the braver Finn, are widely known among common folks in major kingdoms outside the city. However, some may not even be aware that Finn's preferred choice of weapon is a long spear. Because of their information disclosed by the guild, Luke and Ace have become celebrities in Rio. In less than a year, both of them were promoted to level 2 simultaneously, an unprecedented speed of progress that shocked the entire city. In the days that followed, almost all gossip in Rio revolved around them. However, for Luke and Ace, this wasn't necessarily a good thing. For instance, the current situation in front of them. Boy, this time it won't be like last time. A total of more than 10 adventurers surrounded Luke and Ace on a narrow path. All of them are level 2 adventurers, and their leader has even reached level 3. Such a team is not something many familia in Rio can assemble. Facing such a large force, Luke and Ace, surrounded on all sides, appeared calm. Because they have gotten used to such situations. Not only Luke, even Ace has gotten used to it. Ever since their aliases as Sword Master and Sword Princess and their achievements became well known, envious and jealous adventurers frequently came looking for trouble. Including this time, it's already the 7th time this month ill-intentioned adventurers came looking for them. Ace, how many do you want this time? Luke ignored the adventurers surrounding them and asked Ace for confirmation. 6. I think I should have no problem handling them. Ace tilted her cute head, pondered for a while, and then answered Luke. The first time she encountered these trouble-seeking adventurers, Ace felt scared and would hide behind Luke for security. She could fearlessly wield her sword against any monster, but she hadn't learned how to deal with her own kind. But no matter what, things become less scary when you're exposed to them more often. These trouble-seeking adventurers would surround Luke and Ace time and time again, only to be beaten down by him each time. This made Ace, who initially hid behind Luke, gradually feel that these people didn't seem so threatening. Compared to ferocious monsters or mighty dragons, these adventurers were hardly worth mentioning. So, over time, Ace was able to calmly face these trouble seekers. Upon hearing Ace's answer, Luke didn't say anything. After all, this wasn't their first time. He just nodded at Ace and then charged towards the LV3 adventurer leading the opposite group. Swinging his sword sheath of tranquility, Luke effortlessly knocked away 2 LV2 adventurers blocking his way. Having reached level 2, Luke's physical abilities had undergone a qualitative leap. Now, even without the boost of prana, he could effortlessly suppress level 2 adventurers. Boom! Blue starlight shimmered on the sword sheath as Luke, with an unstoppable momentum, sent the LV3 adventurer with a fearful face flying. Just as he was about to finish off the others and conclude this trouble encounter, he suddenly felt that the atmosphere around him seemed a bit off. Unknowingly, Ace, who had been fighting alongside him with other adventurers, had disappeared. Not only her, but everyone around had vanished without a trace. Magic? Yes, this is my subordinate's magic, used to divide the battlefield. After all, it's most suitable for dealing with lackeys of guilds like you. As Luke looked around, a woman's voice echoed in front of him. Following that, numerous adventurers dressed in black robes, led by 2 individuals, emerged from the shadows and stood opposite Luke. Let me introduce myself. I'm called Valletta, a senior member of the organization you refer to as Evelys. Perhaps thinking she had Luke in the palm of her hand and wanting to enjoy his struggling expression to satisfy her perverse desires, Valletta confidently explained to Luke. The purpose for us appearing here, you should be able to guess by now. Haha, then please die here. Luke looked at the opponent's typical antagonist act of seeking death with some speechlessness, not knowing how to reply. The woman who spoke, Luke recognized her. Valletta agreed, a senior member of Evelys known as Arachnia, was a level 3 adventurer extremely close to reaching level 4. Don't underestimate her just because she's level 3, this woman could be considered Finn's old rival. Under Valletta's command were numerous magic users with strange effects. With the help of these mages, she managed to escape unscathed after facing Finn several times. Although Finn could easily crush Valletta in terms of combat power, if she was determined to escape, Finn was helpless against her retreat. The reason Luke was tasked with taking care of Ace, thus freeing up the magic specialist Riveria, was largely to deal with this troublesome woman and her subordinates. You're so sure you've got me figured out like that? Luke scratched his head, silently raising his guard. Although Evelys was indeed skilled in causing chaos, and judging from their multiple escapes from Finn and others, they clearly had expertise in retreat. It shouldn't be this reason for them to be so confident in surrounding and killing Luke. Even if the outside world didn't have a detailed understanding of his strength, just from the guild's publicly disclosed information, one could deduce that Luke possessed at least level 4 combat capability. As expected, not surprising Luke, after hearing his question, Valletta laughed. At the same time, another person in a black robe approached her. I certainly wouldn't be naive enough to think one person could take you down. After so many days of scouring for information, I have confirmed that you have strength far beyond that of a level 3 adventurer. So, I've brought in reinforcements. Even if you have a level 4 strength, you must die here today. As she spoke, under Luke's gaze, the person next to Valletta took off his headwear, revealing his pale white hair. Also another senior member of Evelys, a level 3 adventurer known as Vendetta, Olivos Act. The appearance of this person made Luke completely raise his guard. He surveyed his surroundings, roughly counting there to be more than 30 Evelys members in black robes surrounding him. If all of them are level 3 adventurers, it would indeed pose a great threat to Luke. Not to mention how many of these high-class adventurers have weird magic and skill effects that Luke has no idea about. Even if all these adventurers just attack together, due to the disparity in level, the high frequency of attacks would make it impossible for Luke to block them all. Although Luke with the presence of prana is unlikely to die, there is still a possibility of getting injured or being affected by some unknown magic. However, just as Luke was quietly raising his guard, the words from Valletta behind almost took his breath away. With me and Olivas here, along with the assistance of so many level 2 adventurers, it's more than enough to surround and kill a level 2 adventurer like you. So what if you have combat power that far exceeds that of an ordinary adventurer? Physical fitness is your biggest weakness. Valletta looked, and kid, let me tell you, fighting humans and fighting monsters are two completely different matters. Facing experts like us who specialize in hunting humans, how much of that extraordinary strength can you retain when you've only fought against monsters? Ha ha ha, killing you, cutting off Loki Familia's future hope, I can already imagine that damn Finn shedding tears of regret. Valletta laughed sinisterly, as if she could truly envision Finn's remorseful appearance. Chapter 103, How can an adventurer be good at fighting people? Recently, some of the adventurers who attacked you were arranged by me, Valletta said. It's precisely because of their probing that I discovered an interesting fact. The peculiarly shaped sword hanging from your waist has never been drawn in combat against humans, Valletta sneered coldly. When she noticed this, she immediately confirmed that Luke was a traditional adventurer. It's because you dare not, afraid to kill, afraid of injuring your own kind. Am I right? Many young adventurers actually had this problem. In this world, dealing with monsters was the mainstream, and most of the development and inheritance of skills were intended to deal with inhumane monsters. For adventurers of Luke's age, being outstanding in dealing with monsters was already extremely rare. If he were to be skilled in fighting against humans as well, Valletta would be the first to not believe it. After hearing Valletta's words, Luke suddenly felt that what she said made a lot of sense. Yes, he really didn't dare. Because the power of Cervaresta was not something that ordinary adventurers who hadn't even reached LV3 could resist. It should be noted that the guild imposed penalties on adventurers for killing people, and the fine was quite high, which Luke simply could not afford. Moreover, Finn and the others knew that Luke had learned extremely advanced swordsmanship for killing humans. If he really dared to publicly kill people on the street, after returning to his familiar residence, Finn and the others would definitely give him a loving re-education. Luke thought carefully and found that Valletta's words seemed to be right, so he honestly nodded at her. Luke's honest behavior immediately ignited Valletta's sadistic desires. She then burst into laughter. Originally, she thought Luke would be a very tough opponent, but unexpectedly, he turned out to be a simple fool. However, thinking of his age, Valletta also understood. It's only natural for someone of his age to be less experienced in dealing with humans. Ha ha ha, no wonder Finn protects you so tightly. I thought he simply didn't want you to come into contact with this cruel world, but now it seems he is also worried about you being abducted. Luke stood still, looking at the other party's performance honestly. If possible, he hoped Valletta could continue babbling for a while longer. Luke, who wasn't familiar with magic, needed some time to penetrate the surrounding magic layers with his sword intent in order to perceive the outside situation. He still hadn't figured out the true nature of this magic used to divide the battlefield. Was he transferred, or was he isolated in a barrier, or was it simply a case of visual impairment? Luke was mainly concerned about Ace's disappearance. It's not that he was worried about her safety. Ace had double insurance provided by Luke and Riveria. As long as she didn't encounter adventurers of first-class level, she was unlikely to be harmed. Moreover, Ace, who had successfully awakened her second skill, was vastly different in strength compared to her age in the original work. If she were to unleash her full strength, ordinary LV3 adventurers probably wouldn't be her match, unless they were extremely close to ranking up like Valletta and Olivas. However, life is full of unexpected encounters. So, Luke didn't want to gamble his companion's safety on uncertainties. After all, there were too many scenes of companions being captured and controlled by others. If, when Luke struck, the opponent said, "We have already captured Ace, quickly surrender or she will die," then Luke, who could not perceive the outside situation, wouldn't even be able to discern the truth of this statement. If Ace had already taken care of all the enemies outside and Luke, because of their words, became hesitant and fearful, wouldn't that be a joke? Hee, how about it? After saying so much, you should understand your situation now, right? Luke nodded silently. So, are you starting to feel despair now? Luke silently looked at Valletta without answering. Why? Why aren't you screaming? Why aren't you crying? Where's the expression of pain? Where's your howl? Why are you so calm? Damn it! Luke's casual expression deeply stung Valletta. What she hoped to see was Luke's anguish, his expression of despair as he knelt on the ground and regretted joining the Loki Familia. Only in that way could she feel satisfied, only then could she unleash her revenge against Finn. Cut it out, seriously, stop embarrassing yourself. Haven't you realized that this kid hasn't shown even the slightest hint of fear from start to finish? Olivas, who had been listening to Valletta's nonsense alongside Luke, finally couldn't bear it anymore. He was truly fed up with this crazy woman. If it weren't for the fact that she was the overall commander of this operation, Olivas would have kicked her long ago. What's the point of wasting time with this brat? If she wants to satisfy her perverted desires, she has to disable him first. Damn brat. Olivas's words brought Valletta back to her senses. With a dark expression, she raised the great sword in her hand and charged at Luke. Valletta wielded the heavy sword, unleashing a fierce strike comparable to a LV4 adventurer. However, Luke then used his actions to tell Valletta how wrong it was to swing a sword at him. Swish! Thud! The moment the sword came down, a severed arm flew into the sky. Oh! Damn brat! Olivas was the first to sense that something was amiss. At the moment Valletta's arm was severed, he rushed towards Luke. At the same time, he commanded the black-robed adventurers behind him, everyone, provide immediate support. Failing to kill Valletta with one blow surprised Luke quite a bit. His previous strike was aimed at her vitals. However, in the instant his sword struck her, it was diverted by a strange force. But Luke didn't dwell on this matter. Instead, he put Cerveresta back into its sheath. In the midst of battle, Luke had no habit of talking nonsense with his opponents. Finn had indeed instructed that if they encountered operatives of Evolus, it would be best to capture some alive while ensuring your own safety. They knew too little about Evolus. If they caught some senior members of Evolus who could provide detailed information, it would be much easier for them to deal with this evil force later on. However, one captive would suffice. Luke assumed his stance, watching Vendetta Olivas, who was rushing to help Valletta, and revealed a smile that made all members of Evolus shudder. Let me have a swing at him. Swish! Thud! Luke vanished from his original position, and when he reappeared, it was behind Olivas. Accompanying Luke's reappearance was the fleeting gleam of his sword. He tenmitsurugi ryub oji amakakura ryu no hiramiki. Chapter 104, The Predetermined Outcome. Valletta looked at the sliced body of Olivas, feeling closer to death than ever before. Shock, disbelief, regret, and even despair tangled together, gnawing at her heart. How dare he kill Olivas? Why would he have the guts to kill someone? The scene in front of her greatly conflicted with Valletta's perception of Luke. Not only that, Valletta had never seen such exquisite swordsmanship, the action of aiming directly at the vital points to kill with single strike. It was as if this swordsmanship was designed specifically for murdering their own kind. How could there be such a vicious skill passed down specifically for slaughtering humans in this world? Who are the true villains, them or him? Without hesitation, Luke swiftly eliminated Olivas, and then he sheathed Cerveresta and approached Valletta. According to Finn's instruction, Luke intended to spare her life. In fact, he had been thinking whether Finn had anticipated that members of Evolus might ambush him and Ace. Otherwise, why would Finn suddenly find Luke a few days ago and tell him that if they encountered members of Evolus, if possible, they should capture some alive, despite his previous efforts to keep Luke and Ace away from matters related to Evolus? Now, thinking about it, this was probably premeditated. Even the double insurance on Ace's body was set up by Luke and Riveria after listening to Finn's persuasion. Wait. You can't kill me, let's negotiate. Watching Luke gradually approach her, Valletta, clutching her severed arm, retreated while saying with some panic, Ivy said so much to you just now, there's a reason for it. That little girl, her name is Ace, right? Our people have already captured her. Even if you kill me, you can't possibly kill all these people without leaving some behind, right? As long as one of them escapes, the safety of that little girl won't be guaranteed. So let's negotiate. Spare me, and I promise not to harm that little girl. Perhaps even she found herself quite reasonable, so Valletta calmed down as she spoke, even reaching into her waist pouch to take out a bottle of healing potion, preparing to stop the bleeding from her severed arm. Luke didn't stop her from staunching the bleeding. After all, he was planning to capture her alive. It would be meaningless if she died of excessive blood loss after being captured. Luke's behavior relieved Valletta, and she believed her threat had worked. Actually, she didn't know the exact situation on Ace's side. Although they did send some people over to Ace's location, the focus was still on Luke. Ace was just a little girl, not even 9 years old, and not worth mobilizing a large force for. However, the most embarrassing situation at the moment was actually for the remaining group of Avalos adventurers. First, they listened to a long speech from their leader, and then they saw her confidently charge forward only to have her arm severed. Just as they were about to follow the instructions of another senior member of Avalos and were ready to provide assistance, the senior member who gave the order was instantly killed. This sudden change almost caused some of the mages to falter halfway through their chanting. But it's okay, they were experienced with such a situation. Most of the dark-robed adventurers had already charged forward, and those with skills and magic were also ready to strike forward. Just as the battle was about to commence, Valletta suggested negotiation. What? The black-robed adventurers, who were halfway into their charge, froze in place. The squad of mages behind them, ready to unleash their magic, almost choked on their chants. Now, all the black-robed adventurers who had planned to provide support wore expressions of embarrassment beneath their hats, as if asking, "Who am I? Where am I? What am I supposed to do?" But they didn't know that Valletta had just saved their lives. She wasn't actually scared by Luke. When she saw Luke instantly kill Olivos, she knew that their team couldn't win against him. Luke's decisive killing of Olivos made Valletta realize something about him. Compared to Finn and the other first-class adventurers who weren't keen on killing other people, the seemingly young boy before her was the most dangerous. Feigning intimidation, Valletta, after using a healing potion to stop the bleeding from her severed arm, calmly walked up to Luke. As she walked, she gestured with her remaining right hand to the black-robed adventurers behind her. Now that you're considering negotiation, let's discuss it elsewhere. And, with such skills, staying by the guild side is a waste of your talent. Join us. Your swordsmanship is specifically for stab. Before Valletta could understand what had happened, Luke had impaled her abdomen with Cerveresta, then forcefully pinned her to the ground. Luke looked at Valletta with great reluctance. This was the second time she had practically delivered herself to be struck by him, making him feel somewhat embarrassed. With Cerveresta pinning Valletta down, there was no chance for her to escape. Cerveresta had its own consciousness. Luke had instructed it to immediately incinerate Valletta at the first sign of escape or disappearance. Though capturing a live member was crucial, Luke had no intention of letting his enemies slip away. He wouldn't let them go just for the sake of capturing them alive. Losing Cerveresta would be a significant loss of his combat capability, but dealing with the remaining rabble would still be a piece of cake. Wait. Do you not care at all about the fate of that little girl? Pinned to the ground and writhing in agony, Valletta, realizing the situation, shouted at Luke in disbelief. Ahaha, I understand. How could a cold-blooded executioner like you possibly stand with the guild? Though he didn't plan on wasting time talking nonsense with his enemy in battle, Luke wasn't sure if the magic isolating him and Ace had a soundproofing effect. It would be bad if the sound could be transmitted outside, causing misunderstanding with Finn and Ace. He didn't want the members of his familia to see him as someone who didn't care about the safety of his companions. You said earlier, there was a reason why you wasted so much time talking all that, right? Then you think there's no reason why I just stood there listening to your nonsense for so long. As Luke's words fell, dense cracks began to appear in the surrounding space. Space isolation, no, it should be a barrier-type magic that involves some spatial attributes. It's truly remarkable. This magic must have caused Finn and the others quite a lot of headache. Luke spoke as he looked towards an empty corner not far away. With a flicker of blue starlight, Luke drew the standard sword from his waist, suddenly aimed it at the corner, and instantly kicked it there. Swish! Crack! The sword, adorned with blue starlight, pierced through the neck of a mage hiding there with lightning speed. Shigurson Ryu, third form, Uraza no aim. At the same time, the surrounding magic layer used to isolate the battlefield was completely shattered under the impact of Luke's violent sword intent. After the magic was shattered, what appeared before Valletta was the one she hated the most, Finn Dame. Led by Finn, members of Loki Familia surrounded all the black-robed adventurers in a tight formation. And at the same time, Ace, protected by Riveria, quietly observed Luke. Chapter 105, Thanks from Ganesha Familia. You did well, but it would have been better if you could have spared Olivas like you did with Valletta. Finn walked up to Luke and glanced at Olivas' dead body, then at Valletta nailed to the ground before saying, "You have made a great contribution this time. Evelus forces are almost completely wiped out from the surface, so the days ahead should be much more comfortable." So, you already knew that Ace and I would get attacked. Luke pouted. Finn and his team arrived so quickly on the scene, obviously well prepared. There was no mistake in his earlier speculation. Didn't I give you a hint before? And I also believe these people pose no threat to your safety. Finn shrugged, smiling at Luke. Finn. You treacherous Paolum. You schemed against me. All of this was planned by you in advance, right? Intentionally concealing the true strength of this little monster, then giving a fatal blow to us at a critical moment. I never thought you would also use such despicable means. Valletta lay on the ground, glaring fiercely at Finn. The moment this hateful Paolum appeared, she attributed everything to his calculations. Valletta's roar successfully caught Finn's attention. He walked up to her, looking at this woman who had been plotting against him for years. I didn't intentionally hide Luke's strength to ambush you. To be honest, I really didn't want him to confront you. Finn sighed as he looked at Valletta, who was nailed to the ground, with one arm severed, looking miserable but still roaring at him. Today's events were indeed designed by me, but if it weren't for my intervention, how many of these people behind you do you think would survive today's incident? With that, Finn glanced at Luke. When it comes to his enemies, he won't show any mercy. Finn's words reminded Valletta of the scene where Luke killed Olivas without any hesitation. She looked at Luke, who had an innocent look on his face, trying to imagine the consequences if Finn wasn't here. A cold breath instantly invaded Valletta's heart. Finn saw her expression and knew she understood. If it weren't for me today, there would only be one outcome, Luke taking you, the only captive, back to our residence. With that said, Finn ignored Valletta and turned back to his team. As he left Valletta with one last sentence. I originally thought that based on your personality, the only captive would be Olivas. Well, your luck is really good today. Next, this group of Evelus members was quickly captured by Loki Familia. However, ultimately, it was not Loki Familia that detained them, but Ganesha Familia. Ganesha Familia is the largest familia in Orario, not in terms of strength but in numbers. At this point in time, Ganesha Familia is the only familia in all of Orario with over 100 members. The number of adventurers in their familia is unparalleled in Orario. And their familia's strength is not weak either. Ganesha Familia boasts over a dozen level 4 adventurers, with most of them nearing the crucial stage of ranking up. Once they accumulate enough high-quality Excelia, this largest familia in Orario is likely to have over 10 first-class adventurers at once. Most adventurers rarely solo challenge monsters like Luke and Ace did when the time comes for leveling up. The usual practice is for several or a dozen adventurers to form a team and collectively challenge monsters to slowly accumulate achievements/Excelia. through long-term accumulation, slowly and steadily breaking through the level-up threshold. So, most adventurers tend to linger for a long time before reaching the rank-up stage, and Ganesha Familia is the most representative of this situation. Although this method of leveling up is slow, safety is its advantage, making it the preferred choice for the vast majority of adventurers in Ororio. Because of their large numbers and formidable strength, and because their god, Ganesha, is a benevolent god who loves Ororio and its people, Ganesha Familia are entrusted by the guild to maintain urban security, constituting part of the city's official forces and earning the nickname Orario's military police. After Finn and his team captured these Evolus members, they handed them over to Ganesha Familia, who arrived shortly afterward. Throughout Ororio, only Ganesha Familia has prison facilities for holding criminals. I truly appreciate your assistance this time. Your willingness to act as bait and endanger yourself for the safety of people in this city truly demonstrates your nobility, which I deeply admire. The woman in front of Luke, who specially came to thank him, is the leader of Ganesha Familia, Shakti Varma. Approaching her 30s, she has short blue hair, and her charming face and tall figure made her quite popular in the city. As the leader of Ganesha Familia, Shakti is a level 4 adventurer with the alias Ankusha. It is rumored that she is very close to reaching level 5 and is likely to become a first-class adventurer in the near future. After leading her familia to the scene to receive Evolus members, Shakti immediately approached Luke and thanked him for his willingness to act as bait. However, Luke, faced with Shakti's gratitude, looked completely puzzled. What's going on? I was just walking down the street and got attacked. How did it suddenly turn into such a noble act of self-sacrifice? Luke sneakily glanced over at Finn and noticed his gesture, and he instantly understood everything. It's true that Luke was attacked while walking down the street, but outsiders are unaware of his situation. Because Finn anticipated this event in advance and swiftly surrounded the area with his team, making others feel that it was a pre-planned strategy by Loki Familia. Only Finn and Luke knew deep down that this incident was actually 70% unexpected and 30% planned. Finn merely anticipated that members of Evolus might attack Luke and Ace and made some contingency plans accordingly, that's all. It was not that he was deliberately leaving Luke and Ace alone to attract their attention. Valletta and the others have been dealing with Finn for many years. If it were really an intentional trap, they wouldn't have fallen for it so easily. However, it may not be the same in the eyes of outsiders. Not to mention outsiders, even Riveria and Gareth were fooled by the clever Finn. Finn the Braver was superior in strategy, while Sword Master Luke sacrificed himself for others. Loki Familia's quick reaction led to the successful capture of members of Evolus who had been disrupting the city's order for many years. That's the truth perceived by others. Actually, looking at the results, this understanding isn't entirely wrong. Luke and Ace were indeed in danger when they were attacked, and Finn's anticipation of this event and his preparedness could indeed be seen as pre-planning. Moreover, the accomplishment of successfully capturing members of Evolus was not false at all. From this perspective, it seems there's no mistake in their understanding. Seeing Finn signaling to him, and after a brief moment of contemplation, Luke understood the situation more or less. Chapter 106, Real Lion. Apart from Shakti, many members of the Ganesha Familia came one after another to express their gratitude to Luke. Among these people, one person's behavior was rather strange, attracting Luke's attention. Unlike other members of the Ganesha Familia who approached enthusiastically to talk or express gratitude, there was an adventurer wearing a green cloak who seemed to be a blonde elf girl about 12 to 13 years old. She simply walked up to Luke, bowed to him, and then turned around to leave to help maintain order without saying a word during the whole process. If it were only this, Luke would at most think that she was not fond of speaking, which was not a big deal. But after she left, while helping to clean up the scene and comfort the nearby residents, she kept her gaze on Luke and Ace without stopping, which puzzled Luke. As a swordsman, Luke was quite sensitive to deliberate stares and gazes directed towards him, so whenever she looked at him, Luke would notice, and whenever Luke followed the direction of her gaze, she would turn her head to avoid his sight. After this happened 2 or 3 times in a row, the abnormality between the two was noticed by Shakti, who was standing nearby. With a somewhat amused expression, she walked over to Luke and began to explain to him. The name of that child is Rio Lion, a member of the Astrea familia. Astrea is a goddess of justice, and the familia she leads has been fighting against the evil forces led by Evelus for a long time. As a familia representing justice and order, Astrea familia has an impeccable reputation in Rio and is one of the most trusted familias by city residents. It's because of this that their relationship with the Ganesha familia, also known as Orario's military police, is very close. They belong to the kind of close alliance. Today, when Shakti received Finn's notification, Rio happened to be visiting the Ganesha familia. Upon hearing that it was an event related to Evelus, Rio, as a member of the Astrea familia, naturally decided to help without hesitation, so Shakti brought her along. Astrea familia is also one of the influential familias in Rio. Although their numbers are few, with only 11 members in the entire familia, they are all high-level adventurers. Freya familia, Loki familia, Ganesha familia, and Astrea familia, these 4 familias are currently among the few powerful factions in Rio. Rio, like you and Ace, is currently a level 2 adventurer, but she is close to reaching level 3 soon. Before you and Ace, she and the newly appointed captain of the Vidar familia were called super rookies. It's probably your appearance that has triggered a certain degree of competition in Rio. Don't blame her either. You, who know Riveria, must be aware of the conservative elf rules. They are not easily approachable. After listening to Shakti's explanation, Luke understood. Of course, he knew the hidden rules of the elves in this world. As a rare magical race, elves in this world have a sense of pride far surpassing that of other races. They usually have extremely strict demands on themselves, such as being noble, pure, just, and responsible, etc. These are the words that ordinary people use to describe elves. Within the elven race, there is a hidden rule that only those they approve of are allowed to touch them. Although it doesn't reach the level of, if you touch me, you must marry me, or I must kill you if you touch me, kind of degree, if you touch an elf without their approval, it's possible to be pushed away, cause disgust, or even be attacked. It's precisely because of this seemingly unreasonable rule in the eyes of other races that elves are often misunderstood as a proud and arrogant race. After all, gaining their approval is extremely difficult. It's not that approaching elves with goodwill will necessarily gain their approval. Most elves will understand your goodwill and then reject it. In their view, accepting someone's goodwill and help without reason is not something to be proud of. On the contrary, it shows immaturity. But those who are rejected may not necessarily understand the elf's perspective. When your goodwill is rejected time and time again, you will instinctively reject, distance yourself from, or even antagonize the other party. However, what Luke cares about is not Rio being an elf, but her existence itself. Compared to the original Rio, who was 21 years old and had short green hair, she, who is still a member of the Astrea familia, has a big difference in both appearance and temperament. With dazzling golden hair like Ace, a relatively young appearance, a sharp expression, and an aura that keeps people at bay. If Shakti hadn't told him her name, Luke would have found it difficult to associate the girl in front of him with the female waitress from the original story. Upon knowing that this girl is a real lion, Luke's first thought wasn't about anything else. It was about the event that led to such a significant change in her future. Nightmare on the 27th floor. Not only Ryu, but the destinies of many people in the future have undergone tremendous changes because of this event, and almost none of them are in a good direction. Thinking of this, Luke suddenly looked at the dead body of Vendetta Olivas Act being carried away. The mastermind behind the Nightmare on the 27th floor in the future is none other than Olivas Act, who was just cut into 2 pieces by Luke. So, does this mean that this unfortunate event won't happen in the future? Luke scratched his head, feeling somewhat complicated. Luke isn't the type to rely entirely on plot development to gain benefits. He has always been relatively casual in his actions and hasn't cared much about plot development. However, when he fully understands that the plot may deviate from the original trajectory, Luke's mood still fluctuates slightly. This happened when he first obtained Servereshta and also when he learned that Ace had awakened a new skill. It's not feelings of worry but more like sentiments or reminiscing, right? To be honest, Luke doesn't really understand what kind of emotion this is. But this feeling just lasted for a moment. Regardless of whether Evelys will still trigger nightmare on the 27th floor later on or not, Luke's own life has to go on. After today's event, Evelys can be said to have suffered heavy losses, and it's unlikely they will make any moves in the short term. With the conclusion of the event, Luke and Ace have once again returned to their daily lives of grinding monsters for leveling up. Indeed, Evelys did disappear for a long period, just as he had speculated. Under the efforts of Major Familius, the chaotic city atmosphere gradually returned to order. Chapter 107, Level 4. Time flies, and 2 years have quickly passed. During these 2 years, with the joint efforts of various major familia, the power of Evelys has been suppressed to the limit, and it may not be long before they will be completely eradicated. Luke and Ace have been living a stable daily life during this period. The two have successively crossed the LV2 and LV3 stages, and both of them have been promoted to LV4 adventurers. Their amazing upgrade speed of 1 level per year has shocked the entire city. Now, the aliases of Sword Master and Sword Princess are known throughout Orario. Their fame can even be compared to that of top adventurers like Finn and others. But after reaching LV4, Luke and Ace have clearly found that the growth rate of their ability values has slowed down. This is a normal process, as the gap between LV4 and LV5 is a qualitative change from the second class to the first class, a challenge that countless adventurers cannot cross in their lifetime. Moreover, from LV5 onwards, each upgrade for a first-class adventurer is an arduous journey, taking 3, 5, or even 10 years to overcome. However, Finn and others have succeeded in this challenge. A year ago, when Luke and Ace had just upgraded to LV3, Finn, Riveria, Gareth, the big 3 of Loki Familia successfully transcended themselves and upgraded to LV6 adventurers. Now, Loki Familia, with 3 LV6 adventurers, is showing a trend of surpassing Freya Familia, which has only 2 LV6s. If this trend continues, it's not impossible for Loki Familia to dominate as the strongest in Orario. Not only have Finn and others made progress, but Ganesha Familia did the same, almost as Luke predicted, with nearly 10 LV4 adventurers collectively promoted to LV5. With such a large number of first-class combatants, Ganesha Familia also made a big splash during this period. The significant increase in Orario's overall strength is also one of the main reasons for the decline of Evelys. The city's atmosphere has also seen a significant improvement over these past 2 years. Okay, your status is updated. Are you still going to try it this time? Loki handed the parchment with the updated ability values printed on it to Luke. Compared to Ace's upgrade speed of 1 level per year, Luke has always been ranking up at a pace of half a year per level, though it's publicly claimed to be 1 year. So, in fact, he has been upgraded to LV4 for over a year now. And in this past year, Luke also successfully maxed out all his attributes to S999. Of course, his magic attribute remains a pitiful I-0. Besides the improvement in basic parameters, there hasn't been much change in magic and skills, basically similar to 3 years ago when Luke first received Falna. Actually, for someone like Luke who has no magical talent at all, it's not that there's no possibility of gaining magic. There exist some alternative methods to acquire magic in this world, among which reading a grimoire is the most mainstream. Grimoire can force the reader to learn a type of magic regardless of talent or potential and are treasures that countless adventurers dream of possessing. However, not just anyone can write and produce grimoires. Only a very few who have developed the mage and mystery development abilities to the extreme can write grimoire. And after being read once, grimoire loses its effect, turning into a book with blank content. Due to its immense value and scarcity, the prices of the grimoire have always been high. They are even more expensive than many first-class weapons and equipment and are always in a state of high demand. Taking the parchment, Luke heard Loki's question, then looked at the ability value stuck at S999 for some time, and replied to her, "Let's give it another try. Although I think it still won't succeed this time, it's better to try it before making a conclusion." It was mentioned before that every time an adventurer levels up, all attributes return to I0, and the accumulated ability values don't disappear but are converted into hidden parameters. So, Luke always maxes out his attributes to S999 before each upgrade. Now, as a LV4 adventurer, his accumulated ability values have far surpassed those of his peers. Not only that, but he also tried to break through the S rank limit, hoping to raise his ability values to SS rank. After all, Luke knows that someone in the future has done it, so it's not an absolutely impossible task. However, he obviously failed. Luke's intention to break through the S rank limit is known to all high-level executives of Loki Familia like Finn, Riveria, and Gareth. When they first learned about it, Riveria once said to Luke, "That is a realm we cannot enter. We can only reach the peak but cannot surpass the limit." Riveria wasn't denying the possibility of surpassing S rank but was explaining a common sense of this world to Luke. For example, Riveria herself, an elven royalty and a mage, can only raise her magic attribute related to effect of magic to the highest S rank. But for strength, endurance, and other attributes where elves are naturally weak, it's impossible to achieve similar growth rates. In Riveria's view, Luke's ability to raise all attributes except magic to S999 is already an incredibly unbelievable feat, but his constant I0 magic attribute also proves Riveria's point to some extent. Just like academics, crafts, technology, martial arts, etc., everyone has their strengths and weaknesses, and indeed, there are limits to everyone's ability values. Reaching the limit is already quite difficult, let alone surpassing the limits of Falna. For Luke, physical fitness is not within his talent range. His talent has always focused on one thing only, which is sword. Increase in physical strength is just a side result. Luke first tried to break through the S rank limit when he was about to upgrade from LV1 to LV2. But it didn't take long for him to give up. Through this attempt, he essentially understood the relationship between his talent, the agent identity, and Falna. Normally, if exercising, say running 100 meters, could gain one attribute point, to gain the second point, one might need to run 200 meters, and for the third, 300 meters. Then, after gaining 100 points, mere exercise won't have any effect anymore, only maintaining the previously gained attributes, preventing them from regressing. The benefit of being an agent of the main god space is that it allows you to continue gaining attribute points through exercise beyond the limit of 100 points. As mentioned before, agents have no upper limit in gaining attribute points before reaching a certain rank, but the difficulty still rises gradually. And the role of Falna is to accelerate this process, allowing you to gain 1 point by running 1 meter, and 2 points by running 2 meters. The purpose of Falna is not to make adventurers stronger but to unearth their potential, develop their possibilities, and shorten the time they become strong. The reason there are so many adventurers who can't make progress all their life is because they no longer have any possibility of being stronger. The state they could only achieve in a lifetime has already been reached ahead of time with the help of Falna. To continue to become stronger, one must either surpass their limits or accumulate more potential over time, which is the so-called rank up. It must be noted that Falna is a training accelerator, not a cheat. But Luke is slightly different from ordinary adventurers, mainly because of his identity as a main god space agent. Chapter 108, Luke's Development Abilities. As the agent of main god space, Luke Ashburn, even after all attributes reach the full value of S999, can still become stronger. Due to the influence of the agent identity, he won't be unable to progress without leveling up like other adventurers. But after the basic abilities reached S rank, the acceleration effect of Falna disappeared. The growth after this will neither be accelerated nor recorded on his status. This result gave Luke some speculation about Falna. That is, Falna cannot act on the bonus traits given to Luke by the main god space. Falna, through various factors like Luke's talent, potential, magic, skills, etc., ultimately determined that Luke's physical quality cannot surpass the S rank limit. So, after the attribute value grows to its limit, it will lose the acceleration effect like other adventurers because, in Falna's view, Luke no longer has any room for improvement. If this speculation is correct, then Luke has indeed made some progress, and a part of the attributes gained during the process of raising his attribute values to the max may come from the agent's bonus. Of course, there is another possibility. That is, reaching the max value of all attributes is something Luke can do on his own. Assuming he was not an agent of the main god space but a native resident of this world. Then, after receiving Falna, he could also raise all his attributes to S rank, which is Luke's own talent. However, although this talent is amazing, it still falls within the range of people's comprehension. As Riverius said, one can only reach the peak but cannot surpass the limit. Luke is more inclined to the second possibility. Luke indeed possesses an extraordinary sword talent, but this does not mean he is inferior in other aspects compared to ordinary people. In fact, he has quite a high talent in many areas, but these talents are far inferior compared to his swordsmanship talent. This can be seen from the time he learned Seizenjutsu. Luke's learning speed and comprehension ability in spells, in the absence of the extraordinary sword talent, are also at a genius level. In theory, his magic aptitude should not be so poor. But Luke is not from this world, he comes from a world without any mystery. In Asterisk City, if it weren't for triggering extra conditions to obtain the special power like prana, he would not have been able to learn Seizenjutsu, nor even be able to use Luke's armament. Luke is not without talent in magic, but his body lacks the prerequisite for using magic. Simply put, Luke only has the talent to use magic, but not the innate gift required to awaken it. If the second possibility is correct, it means that the traits from the identity of being an agent are not recorded by Falna. Luke cannot create miracles and break through this limit until his Falna perceives this anomaly. Originally, Luke had already given up on breaking through the S rank limit. But when he upgraded to LV2, one thing changed his mind. Development abilities. This is an ability that adventurers can additionally learn outside of their basic abilities. The opportunity to learn it comes during rank up. Each time the level rises, it's possible to add development abilities to the status. This ability differs from attribute values in nature and does not belong to magic or skill category. It can further develop and strengthen special or professional abilities. For example, a development ability blacksmith allows adventurers good at forging to forge even more powerful equipment, or a development ability spearman allows adventurers skilled in using spears to exert greater power when wielding them. Development abilities are not guaranteed to appear with each rank up. Whether one can obtain development abilities depends on whether the adventurer has any noteworthy experiences during the accumulation period of Excelia. If there are no noteworthy experiences during this period, then even if one ranks up, they won't gain development abilities. Conversely, adventurers may be presented with multiple development abilities to choose from during rank up. As for what kind of development ability you will get, it depends on what actions the person with Falna has taken. Each time an adventurer levels up, they can only choose one development ability, even if they have many development abilities to choose from. However, which one to choose is up to their discretion. Luke is now LV4, and he has successfully obtained development abilities every time he leveled up. The order they were obtained in is as follows: Swordsman, Abnormal Resistance, Monster Hunter. Among these three development abilities, the one that is not special and easier to understand is Abnormal Resistance. It's an ability that can resist almost all abnormal states such as poisoning, paralysis, etc. Although this ability may not seem impressive, it is a very important ability for adventurers, and basically, most mature adventurers will specifically acquire it. In the dungeon, one often encounters various attacks of unpredictable abnormal effect, as well as many malicious acts from other adventurers. So, this development ability is quite practical in use. Moreover, in the upper floors of the dungeon, you will encounter a monster called Purple Moth, which disperses poisonous powder. It's difficult to combat this monster without abnormal resistance. However, it's also because of the existence of Purple Moth that abnormal resistance became relatively easy to obtain early on. Originally, when Luke upgraded to LV2, there were 3 development abilities to choose from: Swordsman, Hunter, Abnormal Resistance. At that time, he chose Swordsman and gave up the other 2 development abilities. At that time, because of the presence of the Hunter development ability, Luke had several days of discussion with Loki and Finn, because giving up the Hunter development ability was somewhat regrettable. Hunter is a specialty development ability for dealing with monsters. This ability allows adventurers to gain enhancement in all attribute values when encountering the same type of monster they have battled and gained experience points/excelia from before. This is a development ability that can only be obtained at LV2, and once missed, there's no chance for regret. The condition for this development ability to appear is by defeating a large number of monsters in a short period, which is quite difficult for ordinary adventurers. It's a very precious and powerful rare development ability. However, Luke still chose the Swordsman development ability in the end since that's where his talent lies. Then, when upgrading to LV3, he chose Abnormal Resistance from the list. Fortunately, when he leveled up to LV4, a development ability similar to Hunter but more powerful appeared. That is Monster Hunter. This never-seen development ability is a high-level rare ability only Luke has acquired. He had only this one development ability to choose from when he upgraded to LV4. The appearance of this development ability even caused a sensation at the time, and after obtaining Luke's consent, Loki told some information about this ability to the guild. The new high-level rare development ability attracted the guild's high attention, and after some time of research and deduction, eventually, the way to obtain this development ability was determined to be: an adventurer needs to discover the Hunter development ability when ranking up to LV2 and not select it. Based on this, massively slaughtering monsters, defeating monsters above one's level in large quantities, even needing a lot of instant kills, will have a chance to discover this ability in subsequent rank-ups. The effect of this development ability is that the adventurer gets an enhancement in all attribute values when encountering monster-type enemies. These are the final deductions made by the guild, and whether there are mistakes in the way of obtaining an additional effects or side effects that haven't been discovered, is currently unknown. After all, this is the first appearance of this development ability, and the guild is just making a record and will not publicly disclose the information about Luke's development ability. Chapter 109, Swordsman. Development abilities share a commonality with basic ability values, which is that they both possess ranks. However, unlike ability values, the ranks of development abilities do not reset to 0 upon leveling up. Rather, the difficulty of increasing their ranks becomes significantly high. The ranks of development abilities also range from I to S, totaling 10 ranks. As the rank increases, the effects of their abilities become stronger, and at higher ranks, they may extend to include additional effects not listed in their abilities. For example, the rare development ability Mystery, when developed to a very high rank, can extend to the ability to create precious items like grimoires. Ace acquired the development ability Hunter when she became LV2. However, when she upgraded to LV6, the rank of the Hunter development ability was only G. For a prodigy like Ace, who shocked Orario, it took 8 years to raise her first development ability by 3 ranks, indicating how difficult it is to upgrade development abilities. Also, Ace acquired the development ability Swordsman when she was promoted to LV4. When she upgraded to LV6, this development ability was just upgraded to H rank, taking 6 years to increase by 1 rank. The upgrade of development abilities does not solely rely on Excelia/experience points. It has a lot to do with the adventurer's talent, aptitude, and practice in this aspect. For instance, the development ability, Abnormal Resistance, only increases its Excelia/experience points when you are attacked by abnormal statuses. The symbol of a high-ranking magic user, the rare development ability Mage, cannot grow simply by casting spells. It requires the magic user to deploy magic circles with the help of Mage, a development ability, and then cast powerful spells after a long incantation to gain Excelia/experience points. Development abilities like Hunter or Swordsman do not improve just because you kill monsters and wield swords. Typical adventurers might spend 5 to 10 years to raise a development ability by 1 rank. The reason Luke changed his mind and tried to break through the S rank limit of basic ability values before each level up is precisely because of the rank of his development ability. Currently, Luke's ranks in 3 development abilities are Swordsman SS Abnormal Resistance I Monster Hunter I. Yes, it is because of the SS rank of Swordsman development ability. Actually, when Luke decided to give up the Hunter development ability and choose Swordsman, Finn and the others all advised him against it countless times. But since the Hunter development ability becomes quite limited in its effectiveness after leaving this world, in the end, Luke still chose Swordsman, which was the most helpful development ability for his growth. Initially, Luke did not associate this development ability with his own talent in swordsmanship. However, when this ability began to grow, Luke immediately realized this is his abnormality. From the day Luke acquired the Swordsman development ability, its rank soared at an astonishing speed. In just 1 year, the Swordsman development ability was upgraded to the theoretical limit, S rank. At that time, not only Riveria but also Finn breathed a sigh of relief when they heard that Luke's development ability rank had finally stopped moving upward. But just as they relaxed, and even Luke felt that S rank might be the limit for everyone in this world except for the chosen ones, one night, when Luke went to Loki to update his status, planning to upgrade to LV3, a miracle happened. This can be said to be the first SS rank that exceeded the limit since the descent of the gods. When the data of the Swordsman SS rank appeared in front of Loki, even she, a goddess, couldn't help but feel astonished. Loki even specially sought Luke's opinion on this unprecedented miracle. If Luke disagreed, Loki wouldn't reveal any news to Finn, Riveria, and Gareth, the big 3 of her own familia. However, Luke told Loki that it didn't matter, and he didn't mind Loki telling Finn and the others. The way Loki looked at him at that time was the kind that dotes on one's foolish child, questioning how this kid usually didn't seem to be so naive, Luke remembers vividly to this day. But this can't be blamed on Loki. This kind of secret, which is considered an ultimate trump card, would definitely be hidden by most people. At that time, Luke had only been part of Loki familia for just over a year. It's not very likely for a normal person to have such high trust in their familia at this time, as relationships between people progress slowly, and without sufficient understanding, trust is impossible to talk about. But Loki, as a goddess, could easily tell that there was no falsehood in Luke's words. He truly didn't care about this information being known to Finn and the others, and he truly trusted them a lot. This made Loki somewhat emotional, thinking this kid was too easy to deceive. Actually, this misunderstanding was purely due to the asymmetry of information. In Loki's view, Luke did not have enough understanding of Finn and the others to have such high-level trust in them. But in reality, Luke knew Finn and the others well enough. Luke knew their characters, their personalities, their pasts, and even how they would think internally when encountering troublesome situations. With this understanding and more than a year of interaction, his trust in them had already been sufficiently established. Moreover, Luke genuinely did not care about the leakage of this information. Not to mention how others might target the passive skill of the Swordsman development ability. Even if you really have a way to limit this development ability, it wouldn't affect Luke very much. This development ability is considered a shocking secret in the eyes of others. But for Luke, it really doesn't matter much. Servaresta, Sword Sheath of Tranquility, Prana, Seizenjutsu, Star Swordsmanship, Main God Space, etc. Which one is not more amazing than this development ability? As the owner of this development ability, Luke is clearer than anyone that since the Swordsman development ability has broken through the S rank limit, SS rank is probably not his limit. In the following 2 years, although Swordsman did not increase in rank, Luke could still feel that this development ability was continuously growing. Luke kept trying to break through the S rank limit because his status showed an SS rank. Often, once something happens for the first time, there will probably be a second time. The appearance of miracles always shocks everyone the first time because the process from nothing to something is the most unbelievable. Once there is a precedent, and the possibility exists, what remains is nothing but continuous effort. After knowing about Luke's Swordsman SS rank, Finn and the others no longer stopped Luke from trying to break the limits of his basic abilities. Riveria even stopped mentioning the impossibility of surpassing the limit altogether. They probably, in their hearts, are also looking forward to Luke creating another miracle. Chapter 110, 27th Floor and the New Floor Boss. By the way, I heard you took on a commission. After updating his status, Loki chatted with Luke as he got dressed. Yeah, that's right. I saw it on the bulletin board a few days ago and decided to take it on. Oh, that's rare. I remember you always used to focus on grinding monsters with Ace, so why did you suddenly think of doing a commission? Luke rarely took on adventurer commissions. No, it would be more accurate to say that he almost never did, so Loki was interested to hear that he had taken on one. There's no particular reason. I just happened to see it. The content of the commission is to request adventurers to bring back certain materials from around the 25th floor. I thought it was on the way, so I took it. Luke answered Loki as he pulled his head out of his shirt. The 25th floor. I see, the Water City. If it's on the way, then your goal is the floor boss of the 27th floor. Luke didn't say anything in response to Loki's words, but simply nodded to her. His goal was indeed the 27th floor. The potential ability value of the floor boss of this floor, located in the lower floors of the dungeon, was judged to be LV5. Under special conditions, it could even reach LV6, which was perfect for Luke to obtain the great feat of upgrading to LV5. That's why he said that the adventurer commission was just a side thing, since he was going to pass through the 25th floor anyway. The so-called adventurer commission. To put it simply, it is a system where the client prepares a payment and then makes a request, and the adventurer receives the money in return for completing the request. To accept an adventurer commission, you must go to the Adventurers Guild headquarters on Northwest Street. The commissions posted on the bulletin board of the guild headquarters are typically the kind that Luke can accept, requesting adventurers to enter the dungeon to collect certain resources. The types of commissions are not limited, so the bulletin board usually has all sorts of content. Collecting resources, recruiting temporary members, exchanging items, and even official information about the dungeon or adventurers provided by the guild. Most adventurer commissions are aimed at areas below the middle floors. This is because the upper floors of the dungeon can be explored by any familia or adventurer as long as they form a team and spend some time. Unless they are truly talentless in adventure, they should at least be able to reach the 7th floor or so. Half of the adventurers in Rio are LV1s who have not yet ranked up, in other words, low-class adventurers. Most familiars can easily reach the upper floors, but very few can reach the middle floors, simply because the number of adventurers qualified to enter the middle floors is limited. This is also why the entrance of the middle floors, the 13th floor, is also known as the first line. However, not just anyone can post an adventurer commission at the guild's bulletin board. In general, only reputable familiars or merchants are qualified to post commissions at the guild headquarters. It's not that others can't, but the main factor affecting eligibility is credit. The guild needs to confirm that the adventurer can get a reasonable reward, which means confirming that they can get the reward and that the reward is reasonable. Every commission posted by the guild has been manually reviewed, and it has the signature of the client or the emblem of the familia. Of course, where there are legitimate commissions, there will always be illegitimate ones. There are some pubs and hotels near the Adventurers Guild headquarters on Northwest Street, where you can find these kinds of illegitimate adventurer commissions. Sometimes the client is not convenient to show up, or the client is an ordinary person or a new familia with not enough credit, or the content of the commission is too strange to be approved by the guild. These types of commissions will all appear here. Some of the clients do not plan to pay at all from the beginning, and there are also commissions that are purely malicious traps. It is a real anything goes kind of commission. These private institutions, such as pubs, are also part of the industry of a certain familia, and can be considered a kind of life-type familia. In addition, these places also sell information to customers, and act as information dealers. They earn money by charging a fee on adventurer commissions and selling the information they acquire to operate their familia. The types of familias in Rio are indeed varied. There are all kinds of strange familias you can think of and can't imagine. The adventurer commission that Luke took on was posted by the guild, so there is usually no problem. However, Loki is not concerned about this. She is concerned about Luke's plan to challenge the monster Rex. Are you sure? Loki regretted asking the question as soon as she asked it, because she knew she had asked a very stupid question. Luke's upgrade this time means that he can officially become a first-class adventurer. This is a very important event for Loki Familia, and it made Loki subconsciously worry for a moment. But it was only for a moment. Now that Luke was a LV4 adventurer, he has completely made up for his lack of physical fitness. I'm afraid even Riveria and Gareth don't know how powerful he is, because Luke hasn't fought at full strength for a long time. However, Loki knows. When Luke upgraded to LV4, he had a private sparring session with Finn. The two of them seemed to be continuing the battle that they had been interrupted when Luke first joined Loki Familia. As the only witness to that sparring session, Loki can be said to be the only one, besides Finn, who knows Luke's true strength. According to Luke and Ace's pace, it will probably only take about a week to go back and forth to the 27th floor. In general, as long as ordinary members do not enter the dungeon for more than a week, they do not need to report to their familia. But Luke and Ace are different. The two of them, who have already upgraded to LV4, are now real core members of Loki Familia. They must report to Finn or Riveria when they enter the dungeon, especially if they are going to the lower floors after the 25th floor. Only with the permission of the captain or vice-captain can core members leave the Familia's residence for a long time. After all, core members can already represent the Familia to a certain extent. If they disappear for several days, they have to report where they are going. Normally, Luke and Ace would choose to report to Finn. This is not to say that their relationship with Finn is better than with Riveria. On the contrary, Luke and Ace actually have a better relationship with Riveria. Because in their first year of joining Loki Familia, it was Riveria who took them both into the dungeon, and they learned all kinds of knowledge from Riveria. In the entire Loki Familia, apart from each other, Luke and Ace spent most of their time with Riveria. As for why they didn't go to Riveria to report, it's mainly because Riveria is getting more and more worried. As Luke and Ace become stronger, Riveria's nagging about them is also increasing. Luke and Ace have been exploring the dungeon together for the past few years, and their strength is far superior to ordinary people. There has never been a problem so far. But as they go deeper and deeper into the dungeon, Riveria becomes more and more worried. The strength and number of monsters in the deeper floors of the dungeon are gradually increasing. Therefore, the guild recommends a minimum of 3 people for an adventurer team. And Luke and Ace's team, with only 2 people, is too risky in Riveria's eyes.